Hey guys, Tiffany Ofili Porter here, where I discuss all things life after sport. This video is going to be a part 2 to a video that I did last year where I gave the 5 tips on how to create meaningful relationships as an adult. And I'm going to go a step further to talk about how to cultivate those relationships, why sometimes adult friendships can feel a little bit harder, and ways to avoid them feeling one-sided, as well as pitfalls to avoid to make sure that they're deep, meaningful, and lasting connections. So if all of that sounds interesting, make sure you continue to watch this video.
With medals on her chest, she's proven her greatness, knows no rest, representing the countries with pride she stands.
And I've said it before, I have some notes here. So if you see me glancing down, hopefully that is not distracting. And as you can see, I'm in the car, a little bit of a relaxed video, but I really wanted to get this out because it's been on my heart and I just think it'll be very useful. So a little bit of backstory. About 3 years ago, my husband and my child at the time, then we had our second child, moved from Michigan to Cincinnati. And when we did move to Cincinnati, I had to kind of start from scratch. I had to build a community. I had to make new friends. And I was able to do so successfully. So much so that my girlfriends are like, "How long have you been here? Are you sure that it's only been 6 months? Because how do you have this many friends?" And you can tell that they were deep, lasting connections that I had in such a short time. And I really made some amazing friends, met some amazing people while in Cincinnati. And then fast forward 15 months into our stay there, my husband was like, "Tiff, we're moving to Kansas City." I wasn't necessarily excited about the prospect before for a number of reasons that I'll get into in a different video, but we finally got to Kansas City and I was eventually excited about the move. And now 2 years later, I'm absolutely loving it. But I had to then create a community from scratch yet again as an adult. And I've been able to do it successfully here in Kansas City. And I do think there's a gift, and I do think that there were very specific things that I kind of implemented into my strategy, if you will, that has helped me to have a very engaged and amazing community here in Kansas City. So basically, that is kind of why I consider myself, experienced enough to talk on this. I can kind of give you some personal and practical advice on how to take those friendships that you're making or have made as an adult a step further so they're deep connections and you just feel fulfilled in those friendships. So I want to acknowledge that I do know it is hard to make friends as an adult. Let's just be real. When you get older, you are dealing with life, okay? You're dealing with careers, husbands, children, family, financial struggles, all sorts of things that come along with lifing that you sometimes have to negotiate and navigate what that looks like to deal with all of those life things, and then to throw in making friends on top of that can be a little bit challenging. So if you're in the stage of life where you're having a little bit of a difficult time making friends or nurturing friends and having those deep connections, you are certainly not alone. And hopefully after watching this video, you feel a little encouraged and empowered to go out there and make those friends and have those lasting connections. So I just wanted to kind of send that encouragement out, because I know sometimes people feel a little bit weird about talking about making friends because it feels a little bit childish, but it's not. It's a thing that people struggle with, especially more so as adults. So kind of segueing into that, one of the topics I want to talk about is, why do adult friendships feel harder in the first place compared to kind of when we were children or teenagers or in college? And I have a couple of theories about that. I think our busy schedules, life transitions, and social media illusions all contribute to why it might seem like it's harder to make deep connections as adults. Let's be real. By the time you're in your late 20s, early 30s, mid 30s, like I am, you are usually knee deep in your career. And if you are not knee deep in your career, maybe you're knee deep in your marriage or taking care of children or growing your business. We all go through different life transitions, a lot of times at different periods in our life. So the way that Tiffany moved when she was in college is going to be very different than how Tiffany moves at 37 years old with a husband and 2 kids and a house and, responsibilities. So I think between all of that, and then just kind of having to actually be intentional about prioritizing friendships into that equation can just make it a little bit more difficult. And let's be very real with social media, being highlight reels, you see people looking like they're the most popular person in the room and just living this joy filled life, and everything is perfect. It's unicorns and rainbows, and you're like, dang, I don't feel that way about my friends, or dang, maybe I don't have those deep connections, and is something wrong with me? Is am I the drama? Am I an issue? And then you kind of can sometimes get into the comparison game. But as with most things on social media, you got to take it with a grain of salt. Sometimes what you see is not always what you get. I have literally seen situations firsthand where there are creators who are out together and they're like, bestie, my sister, I love you. And they're hugging each other and getting all this amazing content. And then the minute the camera goes off, they don't even talk to each other. And they're just over there focused on creating the content and getting the right angle and the right aesthetic for social media, because that's what people are drawn to. That's what give them the likes and the validation. And then in real life, they're not even really friends with that person. I, for one, would much rather have a deep connection and a deep friendship with people in real life, offline. And if it just so happens to be captured on social media, fine. But what you see behind closed doors to me is more important than what you see on people's highlight reel on social media. So if you're one of those people who feels a little bit like everybody's life is perfect based off of what they're displaying on social media, or that their friendships are just so amazing and yours are not, don't get caught up in the hype, and do not let that kind of deter you on your mission to have those deep connections with your friends. So I really wanted to point that out, because I do feel like sometimes that gets lost on people, that we all know that people can kind of hype up their romantic relationships, or hype up how much money they make, or even filter their faces, or do all these things to put on an aesthetic for social media, and that also includes your friendships that you're showing. So keep that in mind. Definitely don't want to be a Debbie Downer, because by virtue, I am a creator. So I get the importance of just, being authentic online, but not everybody is authentic. So just never let that make you feel like your friendships don't matter, because they might not be this picture perfect social media story. I also want to point out another reason why it might feel like relationships as adults are a little bit harder is because we're oftentimes comparing them to our friendships as children or teenagers or college students. Life at 37 is very different than when I was 12 years old and we're going on bike rides and talking about frivolous stuff as children, or when I'm in high school and we're talking about, homecoming court and being cheerleaders and getting into college. And then when you get to college, you have friends there who, you guys are partying together and studying together and talking about grad school and all of these things. And as you go throughout these different stages in life, you're going to notice that it sometimes gets a little bit harder when life really starts to get real and you have real responsibilities to prioritize and really nurture friendships as an adult. So with that, how do you actually nurture deep friendships as an adult? I think it goes down to being intentional. Prioritizing friendships is similar to how you do other relationships. It's funny, kind of a side note. Last night, my husband and I were talking, and I was watching Pop the Balloon or Find Love. I don't know if you guys watch this viral dating show, but I love watching them. I've even actually done a reaction video on the show before, so I'll post it here in case you haven't seen that video. But I was like, Jeff, am I still your type? Would you actually pop the balloon on me if I was on this show? And then we got into a long conversation, a kind of about being in the stages in our life right now. Jeff was like, Tiff, where would I meet you? Like, if you were single and I was single, where would we ever meet? And I was like, you know what? That's a really good question. I don't know. Because right now, the stage of life that I'm in, I'm all about mommy mode, wife mode, creating my home mode. I'm not single. So I live a very different reality than my sisters who are single, who are looking for spouses. So that just made me think, not only about romantic relationships, but also platonic ones where it's like I would be intentional. I would be going out to lounges if I were looking for a spouse, but also for friends too. I would, for a matchmaker, I'm talking kind of specifically about relationships. I would be on dating sites. I would be in church. I would be asking around. I would just be whatever that looks like for you, because people are looking for different things. So somebody who's not religious might not be looking for a spouse in church, or somebody who doesn't go to the club might not be looking for a spouse in the lounge or in the club or in the bar. And I get that. But the point I'm trying to make is you have to be intentional. So one of the ways I met my friend here, Bonnie, is that she and I were at a story time in the library. I've talked a little bit about this in my previous video about making adult friendships. And I was very open. I was welcoming. I was myself. And I think she even told me, like, after the fact, that she could kind of pick up on my vibe, and she could tell that I was a real one. And I could tell the same thing. I told her that too. I was like, I believe I'm a good read of character, and I was able to tell that you were real. So we exchanged numbers, and we both were intentional about, meeting up and getting our kids together, learning each other. And right now she's one of my closest friends here in Kansas City. So that's just a real life example about being intentional, being open. And then once you do get the phone number or make that connection, taking it a step further and actually being intentional. So very, very important that, just like friendships and any other important relationship, you have to prioritize it into your day to day. And another thing that I want to mention about those deep friendships is prioritizing quality over quantity. And I can't speak for everyone, but I can tell you for myself, I would much rather have 3 deep, soul feeling, enriching, uplifting relationships than 20 superficial ones where we have very silly conversations and I leave feeling like, what was the point of that? That's me. Everybody is different. If you're looking to just kind of, have friends who are more surface level, then boo-boo, do you. I don't think you would necessarily be watching this video if that were you, but everybody is different. But if you are looking for those deep and meaningful relationships, then going into it knowing that not everybody's going to be your person. It's okay to have that first date or that first interaction with somebody and be like, not really feeling it. And that's okay. You're not going to be best friends with everybody. If you're best friends with everybody, then what is the meaning of best? You know what I mean? You want to make sure that you're being selective. Not everybody deserves access to you. Not everybody deserves to be in your space. Not everybody is on the same wavelength or passes the vibe check or is even going to share your values or your desires, and that is okay. I do think there is a lot of beauty in being selective in relationships because it's going to help you filter through the fluff and really get to the core of someone and know that, yeah, this is my person. I can call you at 3:00 in the morning when I'm going through a crisis and not feel weird about it. I can call you, you'll be the first person on my mind when something bad comes up because of the time we've built and how deep this connection is. Not if something happened right now, I have nobody that I can call because I have friends, but I don't have friends. So definitely keep that in mind, that there is a lot of strength in being selective and, prioritizing the quality of your friendships. Next is the consistency. Now, scheduling regular check-ins and meetups, I think, is paramount because that kind of goes into, again, nurturing and fostering those relationships. If you just, you guys met up once and lives and I'll see you in 6 months, that works for some people. And I actually do have some close friends who it's kind of like that. We're in that stage of life right now where we are building and grinding and we do not talk every day, but when we do, it's like no time was missed. But the reason we're able to do that is because we've cultivated those relationships in the past and we have an incredible foundation. And we know that it's nothing but love between us. And when we come back together, it's a great time. If you're in the infancy of a relationship with a new friend, you might not necessarily have the leeway to just not talk to me for 9 months. I'm going to forget about you because we don't have that foundation. So being intentional about being consistent, especially in those beginning stages of your relationship, I think is key. Okay. Now, scheduling those regular check-ins or meetups, meet the person kind of where they are. If somebody is like, yeah, I don't really like talking on the phone, I'd much rather, text or, meet in person, then respect that. I'm not going to call you and want to have a 2 hour long conversation because that's not the vibe you're on. That might not be the vibe that I'm on. But let's go ahead and get coffee. What's a good time that works for you? How do you want to, nurture this relationship and just kind of meet and work with that person kind of where they are? But regardless of what it is specifically, it is important to be consistent. And with that, to nurture those deep friendships, you absolutely have to be vulnerable and have depth. Now, this is one that I'm gonna keep it real with you guys. I kind of struggle with, okay, a little bit, and I'm working on it. So, anybody who's working on being more vulnerable in their relationships, you're not alone. Matter of fact, meet me in the comments. We can be each other's accountability partner because I do believe I'm one of those people who, when I have friends, I love to hear about you. I want to help you. I want to serve you. I want to just pour into my friends and be a resource or be a light or be helpful in any way. And then when it gets flipped on me and they're like, so tell me about yourself. How do you feel? What are you struggling with? And I'm like, oh, wait a minute. What you talking about? We going deep, deep? And it can just be a little bit uncomfortable for me. I'm not sure if that's part of my personality or what the case may be, but that is something that I'm working on because it's a two-way street. The same way that you want to have those deep conversations and have those deep connections with friends, you need to also be willing to be deep with them and be vulnerable and be open. So I've been trying to do a better job about sharing my story, about telling my struggles, about saying, hey, can you pray for me in this area, especially for my Christian friends, and just knowing that if you want people to be vulnerable with you, you have to be vulnerable with them, to a degree that you're comfortable with. Okay, so definitely something I'm working on, because the next topic I want to mention is the support and reciprocity, being there for each other not only during the good times but also during the bad times. Debbie, it is easy to be friends with somebody when you guys are going out to happy hour or going to that steakhouse, eating that filet mignon and that lobster and those cocktails, and you're giggling about a win that happened at work, and both of you guys are just in a very happy stage in your life. That's amazing. That's incredible. And it's important to celebrate those wins with your friends. But, how are you going to be when your friend is going through a loss, when they just lost a family member, or they got laid off from their job, or they're having financial struggles or health issues, or when life begins to life? Are you going to be that friend that's going to show up for them when times are good and times are bad? And are you going to be open and vulnerable to say, hey, help me out right now, I'm going through a hard time? I think that sometimes even resonates with people more when you can be there for them in those hard and difficult moments. So just be a support system, be a light, be the friend that you want to have. I think that is so important. Sometimes things can feel very one-sided, but it is important to just be there for people in the way that you want them to show up for you. So I don't want this video to be too long. Let me kind of try to power through these. The next thing I want to talk about is ways to make new meaningful friendships. I want to kind of power through these points because I did talk about those 5 practical tips, like I mentioned in the part 1 of this video. But for those of you who haven't watched it or are going to watch it after this video, just remember that engaging in shared hobbies or interest groups is an amazing way to start. My friend Bonnie that I mentioned before, we have a lot in common. We both have 2 young children. Right now she's getting into gardening. I've been an avid gardener for a while, even though I feel like my green thumb is turning kind of brown because it used to be a lot easier for me before I'd had kids and had more time, but that's neither here nor there. But the point is, she and I can talk about how to become better gardeners, or ways that we're disciplining our children or teaching our children, or things that are going to be helpful and that we have those shared interests, versus talking about the latest silly celebrity gossip, which is not my vibe, and I don't really think that's hers either. That's one way to really make those new meaningful friendships and to nurture those ones that you already have. And with that, reconnecting with old friends. Now, this one comes with a bit of a caveat, because I do believe that sometimes you need to acknowledge that some friendships are there for a season and some are there for a lifetime. And it's important to know the difference. Some of the really great friends that I had in pharmacy school, we used to study together. They came to my wedding. We were just in a very different stage in life. Had amazing relationships. I don't necessarily even talk to them every day now as I'm an adult in a very different stage in my life, because that's just the nature of friendships. Sometimes old friendships are kind of okay with being old friendships because seasons, right? And even more so if you kind of severed that relationship or that tie for a specific reason, like something drastic or earth-shattering happened, I'm not one for circling the block. Baby, if we stop being friends for something that was that atrocious, then we ain't gonna be friends again. However, there's some friends who is like, yo, I just need to do a better job of reaching out. I just need to do a better job of building on that foundation that we had years ago. And that's where I think there's a lot of power in just being intentional about hitting up those old, really close friends you had and saying, hey, let's chat, let's FaceTime. What's going on? Let's catch up. And then you'll see like, oh, maybe they're going through a time where they just really needed a friend, and you just never know what doors that can open. So be selective, be discerning with circling the block on old friendships, but there's a lot of potential there. And with that, when you are in the process of meeting new friends, but being proactive in social settings, hosting, inviting people out. There is this woman in my neighborhood who we have children who are the same age, and we were talking once, and she's like, Tiffany, we're going to get together for a play date. And to be honest, if you're a mom, you know what I mean. A lot of moms say that, and you're just like, okay, no problem, eventually, and you don't even think twice about it. No love lost, but it's just like, okay, whatever. This woman followed up a week later like, hey, let's go ahead and meet up. What day works for you? And I was like, you know what? I like the initiative, and I like how you're being proactive about this. And we met up, we got together, our kids had a great time, and we vibed, and it was a great time. We've talked since then, and I just think that there's something to be said about following up and really being intentional about those initial interactions and just being proactive. So keep that in mind. Next topic are the common friendship pitfalls and how to avoid them. Again, I'm going to power through these, guys. We're at 23 minutes, and I'm sorry if you're still watching. I hope you're finding this video useful, but very common pitfalls are one-sided friendships. We kind of talked about this before, about being a support for someone and being open and vulnerable to foster those deep relationships. But if you want somebody to be a good friend to you, you have to be a good friend to them. So if somebody is pouring their life out to you and, taking the initiative and trying to schedule those friendships and trying to be somebody that's going to be a friend in your life, and you're just not receiving it, you're just like, you're just taking and not offering them any value in their life, that relationship is probably not going to thrive. You have to meet people where they are, and you have to remember that relationships are two-way streets. Sometimes, I talked about it before with old friendships, it's okay to also know that sometimes you naturally grow apart from somebody, and that's okay. Different seasons in life. Some of the girls that I vibed with back in college when we were, partying and just living our best lives, we might be in two very different stages in our life right now, and that's okay. Different stages, different seasons, and I'm not saying that those friendships were any less meaningful than these ones are. In fact, they served their purpose in that season. And now as an adult, there's some friends that I might be growing apart from. We might not really vibe that well. We might not talk every day, and that is okay. Be discerning. One last thing I want to mention about the common friendship pitfalls is conflict resolution and addressing misunderstandings. Now, I do believe a lot of my friends would say that I am very unproblematic. I am not really one to argue. I am pretty easygoing. I'm not judgmental. I am honest. I'm direct. What you see is what you get. And they know that about me. So when it comes to like misunderstandings, I don't really have them typically often with my friends. I have definitely had misunderstandings where we have to have a conversation and be like, yo, that was a weird comment. What was that about? I didn't like that. This is how it made me feel. And I'm not one to shy away from difficult conversations. But for the most part, I think when there's respect in the equation, you don't really have those types of misunderstandings. And I sure as heck ain't about to get in a yelling match with any of my friends. The same way I'm not going to be yelling at my husband and screaming, and we respect each other. We communicate like adults. It's the same respect that I expect from my platonic friendship. So definitely something to keep in mind. You have to just respect people and kind of see how they are going to resolve conflict when it arises, or if it ever arises, because that is a true indication of kind of where they are. If I had a girlfriend who liked to cuss people out and, be smart and all this and they wouldn't pass the vibe check, and we probably wouldn't be friends in the first place. So definitely something to keep in mind. Kind of watch how they resolve conflict and how they address misunderstandings. Is it done with respect? Is it coming from a place of love? Or are they just about the drama and about the stuff that you ain't about? Because if that's the case, they might not be the friend for you. So I really hope you guys enjoyed this video. Comment down below one thing that's helped you to build strong friendships. Have you been very successful in this area? Do you need some help? Is there any topic here that I discussed that you would like for me to elaborate further on, maybe in a part 3 video? Let me know down in the comments. I respond to literally everyone down there. And also, I would love if you enjoyed this video, if you learned anything new, not only give it a like, but subscribe and maybe share it with somebody that you think might find it useful. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed it, and I will see you in the next video. Peace.